Leading things off this time with my good friend Cinzia Croce. Cinzia, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How is the braised pork going? You said you're preparing.
You mean the carnitas?
Yes, your carnitas.
They're cooking right now. And I'm smelling them, and I'm getting hungry.
I'm jealous.
Let's not talk about that. Otherwise, I'm just going to stop this recording right now.
You're going to talk Italian food. Oh,
well, it's not Italian food, but it's still delicious.
Well, so I've taken something of an interest in one of our presidential candidates on the Republican side, not because I support him, but because I am very highly critical of his candidacy. That is Vivek Ramaswamy. Nobody's ever heard of him. He's never done anything with Republican politics. He hasn't even voted for president since 2004. He says he voted for Trump in 20, didn't vote for him in 16, on and on and on. And it's just like, what's going on? And so I put together an outline just off of the information from the Wikipedia page, highlighted a couple of items. And my basic assertion is that it's not even a matter of he's 38 years old. He's barely a sperm. He's barely started shaving, and he's running for president. It's like, guy, go live some life. Don't come back because your background is questionable.
What's really surprising is that you looked up his Wikipedia just out of curiosity, because we started seeing his name and we started seeing people talk about him on social media. The moment you read Wiki, I mean, it just jumps at you how this man made his money. He presents himself as an entrepreneur, as a scientist, as someone who started a pharma company and has invented new drugs, new treatments. That's not at all what his background is like.
Right. I'm just going to start right at the top here. So we've got a guy that was born August of 1985. So he just turned 38, born in Cincinnati, Ohio. His parents were both from India. They were born in India, educated in India. His father's a patent attorney. Mother is geriatric psychiatrist. He graduated from high school in 2003. Now, he's valedictorian. And the two things I like most about him, I have to admit, he's a nationally ranked junior tennis player, and he's a piano player in junior high school and high school. He graduated from Harvard, summa cum laude, with a Bachelor of Arts Biology, Phi Beta Kappa. So a very impressive academic background.
Yeah, the guy's smart.
The thing that you were talking about with he presents himself as being some fantastic scientist and researcher and so forth. This was one of the first things that stood out. I was like, wait a second. There's a difference between a BA and a BS. I don't care what the major is. There's a difference between the degrees. So I did a little bit of nosing around, and it confirmed my suspicion. The BA tends to be the degree that if you're going to go to med school and you're going to be a doctor, or if you're going to go through and get an RN and be a nurse, if you're going to be patient facing, that's the degree that you tend to get, BA in biology. If you're going to go the direction of medical school for research purposes or PhD for clinical research.
In other words, the scientist route, what he claims to be.
Yes, it's going to be the Bachelor of Science, the BS in biology. Graduated 2007, founded a private social networking group that was for launching business for students. It was acquired sometime later. Worked at QVT Financial Hedge Fund between college and law school. In 2011, now this is one that I would think I guess people just have not heard this. I don't know. When you hear the name Soros as a conservative, as a Republican, anything right-leaning, would-be Republican voters, if you're in any way, shape, or form affiliated with the name Soros, I would think that should be death knell, strychnine on a plate. In 2011, he received the Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowship for New Americans, which Paul Soros is the brother of George Soros. And Vivek has talked about this, and he said that poo-pooed it and dumbed it down and said, oh, this is no big deal. Hundreds of people received this. Well, in 2013, he received his Juris Doctorate at Yale Law School, which, again, very impressive. You don't go to Harvard and Yale, and that's the two schools you get your degrees from, and not be a pretty impressive cat. So 2014 is when he founds Roivant Sciences. Got his first $100 million investment capital from QVT, who he had worked for several years in between degrees. Same year, 2014, founded subsidiary Axovant Sciences. In 2014 December, Axovant purchases a patent for intiperdine from GlaxoSmithKline for $5 million. Now, the thing about intiperdine is it had already gone through four rounds of clinical trials with Glaxo, and it had failed all four. Not one, four clinical trials. They had tried to use this. What was it supposed to be? It was supposed to be for
It was supposed to be a cure for Alzheimer's, a revolutionary cure. At least that's how Vivek promoted it.
That's correct. He buys intiperdine from Glaxo for $5 million, December 14. In 2015, he raises $360 million for Axovant. Now, remember, Axovant is the one that purchased the patent. It's the subsidiary. In 2015, Ramaswamy also appears on the cover of Forbes magazine. He's making a claim that, quote, intiperdine would be the highest, Axovant would be the highest return on investment endeavor ever taken up in the pharmaceutical industry, unquote. So, pretty high praise for his own company and what it's doing. 2015, he also raises $315 million for Axovant through IPO, initial public offering. The value soars to nearly $3 billion. First of all, he raised $100 million from QVT for Roivant. Then Roivant raises $360 million for its subsidiary Axovant. And then they raise $315 million through IPO for Axovant. And then that IPO value soars to nearly $3 billion. He sold off a portion of his holdings in Roivant to investors and claimed $37 million in capital gains in 2015. So he paid a pretty good amount of tax that year for that. Okay, cool. I mean, at least we can trace that he's actually paid taxes in his life, which is more than we can say for Donald Trump at this point.
Well, the reason why Donald Trump hasn't paid any taxes is because he has so many losses. When your businesses keep going bankrupt, I mean, you can carry that loss. So there's no danger of taxation.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we're still in 2015-16. Ramaswamy is quoted at one point. Ramaswamy said his company would be the Berkshire Hathaway of drug development and touted the drug as a tremendous opportunity that could help millions of patients, prompting some criticism that he was overpromising. So now, 2017, Roivant secures $1.1 billion investment by SoftBank. Now, first of all, you have a whole bunch of moving pieces here and investment capital coming in from all over the place at all different levels. You've got investment capital coming in at the parent company, Roivant level, at the Axovant subsidiary level. I mean, just all over the place. So that kind of is a little bit suspicious. In September 2017, this is when the bad news starts to come in. Roivant Axovant announces that intiperdine has failed its clinical trials. The company lost 75% of its value in one day and continued to decline more after that. Investors included various institutional investors and the California State Teachers Retirement System Pension Fund. Ramaswamy held his stake through Roivant. So again, the parent company, he didn't lose any money per se on Axovant because he held his shares through Roivant, the parent company, which he still maintains a position in.
I would certainly recommend, and I'm going to put this in the show notes. There's a video by Meet Kevin where he goes into details, and I think it's a little bit easier to follow than to just hear people talk about this.
I love this. In 2018, he said, Ramaswamy stated his regret at the outcome of the company, but was annoyed by criticism. Axovant, the subsidiary, attempted to reinvent itself as a gene therapy company and then shut down entirely Oh, how convenient. In 2023 in February, right before Vivek announced his candidacy for.
One of the recent accusations that I've seen is that the reason why he ran for president was to avoid answering these lawsuits. And apparently, I guess I need to verify this, but apparently he was requested to attend some kind of deposition or something or another. And he's used the excuse that he's running for president.
Oh, yes.
So you saw that?
Yes, I saw that somewhere. I remember that. He's tired at the end of the day. He can't answer questions because sometimes he's been traveling across country all day.
Because everybody's been kind of wondering about this guy. Why in the world did he get into the race? For a while there was all kinds of conspiracy theories. Oh, he got in because that way he would keep Ron DeSantis from running, which I mean, that's just stupid on its face. Nobody heard of this guy. Why would Ron DeSantis say, oh, Vivek is getting in? I'm not going to run. I mean,
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't run against him.
it's
Right.
one of those things where if you just stop for about 20 seconds, you're like, this is stupid. Nobody heard of this guy. Why would Ron DeSantis stay away because Vivek got in?
Yeah.
But maybe the reason why is because of these lawsuits. I don't know. Maybe it may be just pure ego on his part. As many pointed out, it wasn't just me, but many pointed out after the first debate when Vivek declared during the debate that Donald Trump is the greatest president he's ever known, everyone started asking them, why are you running against him? His run for president makes no sense
Right.
whatsoever. As long as you're making money for the investors, everything is fine. The moment investors start losing money, that's when the lawsuits start. That's when the arbitrations start. That's when people start making phone calls to the various regulatory agencies. And maybe this is what has happened to him.
He comes out and he says, "Hey, we've bought this drug. It's failed clinical trials. We're going to go at it again, and we're hopeful that this is going to blah blah blah." And then he has his mother. And this was the thing, and I forget where in which of the source material that we looked at that it comes out and it says they didn't perform a single test.
It was that Meet Kevin video was the first time I heard about that his mother took one of the existing studies, the failed studies, manipulated it, took out the participants who did not finish the study for whatever reason, or probably because they got sick or something. But anyway, she repackaged that study and did it in such a way
Yeah.
that it made the drug look promising, at least enough to where her son could go on CNBC and talk about, wow, this could be the next great thing. And he's a great talker. I mean, the guy is a great talker. Where have we seen that before?
Now, I love this term. Give us the securities term for what this is called.
Pump and dump, which is pump. You really pump up
Right.
the particular security, and then you just dump it and get out, and you get out with the money, and the rest of the people are left holding the bag. It's an old trick. It's like bait and switch and some of the other things.
It's been done with commercial real estate. It's been done with dot coms. It's been done in everything that you can possibly invest in. At some point or the other, someone's done this.
Hey, David, it's capitalism. It's capitalism.
This is the sad side of capitalism, unfortunately.
Look, I'm hesitant to call and say, oh, he's a fraud. Or I do find it extremely suspicious that someone can buy a drug that has failed 4 times, as you emphasized, is able to somehow repackage one of the studies and make it look like that has some potential. That in itself is something to be concerned about.
It's the timing of several things that just doesn't smell right. Like, for example, Axovant shut down like less than a month before he declared his candidacy for the presidency. In 2022, Ramaswamy co-founded Strive Asset Management, which is an Ohio-based asset management firm, and it is positioned as an anti-woke, anti-ESG fund, ESG being environmental, social, and governance. And so, he's in 2022, he's founding a new company that's taken for lack of a better way of putting it, taking a very pro-Republican, pro-conservative, and then barely months later, basically resigning from that and declaring his candidacy for the presidency.
Recently, there was an article in Newsweek by Sam Nunberg titled Vivek Ramaswamy is a fraud and always has been. So I'm glad to see that the conservative media or the people are looking into this and questioning his background. Thing that I am surprised about is to see people like Scott Adams, people like Ramsey Paul immediately jump on the Vivek bandwagon. Haven't people learned anything from the Donald Trump experience? I mean, at the very least, people should learn one lesson. This whole idea that you're going to be able to get an outsider who is going to be able to go into DC, drain the swamp, and do all of these things is just not going to happen, because an outsider is not going to have enough institutional knowledge to know where you need to begin and the process of dismantling the administrative state. An outsider, a pure outsider, is not going to have the political team that you need to achieve anything. What fascinates me is the fact that so many people were willing to jump on the bandwagon of a guy that no one knew anything about it. And I just took him at face value, didn't question anything about his background, didn't even question his political stances. Because a lot of people have gone through and looked at what he said in the past versus what he's saying today. And they're two different things. It's the lack of skepticism. That's what bothers me.
That's a good way of putting it. The lack of skepticism.
Now, I've said several times in 2016, I ignored a lot of the red flags around Donald Trump because I was willing, oh, let's try the outsider, let's roll the dice, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that again. I've learned my lesson. Can other people learn lessons?
Well, and it's one thing if you have that skepticism and you ask the questions and the answers come back in logical fashion. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, fine. You had the skepticism, you investigated, and they're not just blowing smoke. There's actually some substance there. Great. That's one thing. But to just have a guy who shows up, and I mean, just the information that's come out in the last month or two, which for that information all to be pointing at this is not a serious person. The most logical explanation is here he's under investigation and the SEC just hasn't publicized it yet, but he knows it's coming. I've been saying for much of the last month now that Vivek Ramaswamy is more likely to share a prison cell with Donald Trump in Leavenworth than to share a spot on the ballot.
What I see is this pattern of people like Vivek, Carrie Lake. That's another one that was a big Obama person. And all of a sudden, she swoops in, she runs for governor, and she has a very faithful following in the GOP grassroots. I don't know why the GOP seems to be so susceptible. I mean, even Trump, how did he come into the party? He came into the party with the birth certificate of Obama. That's how he made a name for himself in the GOP. Prior to that, he might have been a GOP donor, but he was never active in the party. He was not a fixture.
I would hope that this information continues to come out and people start to see that there's some really serious questions here. This guy has not been involved in his local Republican Party. Hell, his voting record. Someone released voter registration information from Ohio, and it said that he voted in November 21 and November 22. Now, Vivek says that he voted for Trump in 2020. He didn't vote in 2016, but he voted for Trump in 2020. There's no record of that we've seen yet. It's just Vivek saying that. And 21 and 22 would have been basically local elections. So I started asking over the last month, so are we talking about a guy who's running for president who's never voted for president? And then he comes out and he says, well, I voted Libertarian in 2004. Well, I don't even remember who that was. He said, I didn't vote in 2008, and I didn't vote in 2012, which, of course, that would have been the year that Ron Paul was involved in the Republican Party. So he voted neither Libertarian nor for Ron Paul, even in 08 and 12. He didn't vote for Trump in 2016, so Does that mean he voted for Hillary? He said he didn't vote for Trump in 2016. He voted for Trump in 2020, but we haven't seen record of that. We haven't seen records come out showing that he was registered and he voted, that he cast a ballot in 2020. So this is not a guy who has a name in the Republican Party locally in Ohio. Nobody there knows him. He's never gotten people elected.
It's remarkable to think that here's a guy that, number one, he's never been politically engaged. You would think that whether or not he voted would be something fairly easy to verify. But there seems to be a lot of confusion about it.
You
Like,
would think.
I did vote, I didn't vote. He has no voting history. He has no history of being involved in the Republican Party, and yet he's able to jump in and seek the nomination for president of the United States. In other words, the number one job in politics.
And depending upon which polling you're looking at, be polling potentially in the 8 to 10% range. That's just stupid for so many reasons.
I mean, let's look at the Democrats. Do you know of anybody in the Democrat Party that kind of swooped in? Now, I know the Tom Steyer and Bloomberg, but Tom Steyer, he put in billions of dollars in grassroots Democrat Party activities. So he was not a stranger to the Democrat Party. He might have not run for office, but he was a big donor, a longtime donor, and activist in the Democrat Party.
Right. Closest thing I can think of, honestly, would be Barack Obama. But even Barack Obama came at it from a completely different.
Wait a second. He ran for state senator. He was involved.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He came at it from a completely different perspective. He came at it from the political side. We know what his job was before he was an elected official. He was a community organizer, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
And then he ran for state senate, was elected. And then through Chicago politics, he was elected to the U.S. Senate. And then within 2 years, he's announcing he's running for president. He is elected, serves 2 terms in the presidency. He came at it from the political party side of things. Vivek is coming at it from the, well, I'm a billionaire, I'm a successful businessman, I'm a scientist and researcher, which he served on the Ohio COVID-19 committee or whatever. And I haven't seen anything about any contributions that he's made, if he's made donations, contributions, and so forth.
That's another interesting question. Has he ever made any political contributions? Apparently, he did contribute some money to the Act Blue, but I haven't seen anything that shows that he was politically active or a big donor. Yeah, here he comes in and he just sort of swoops into the GOP. And the reason why all these people are swooping in is because, let's face it, the GOP is easy prey. It's easy prey for any fast talking or smooth talker like Carrie Lake. They're easy prey.
I think that it is an extension of what we've seen with the grifters and with the people who used to be in the Democrat and left media and left organizations, but there weren't enough jobs, there weren't enough opportunities, so they came over here to the Republican side. And now you're starting to see it among candidates because Trump has had so much success doing that.
I mean, obviously, Donald Trump was the most successful, but I mean, Carrie Lake has been successful, and to a certain degree, so far, Vivek has been also successful. So, why are people able to just swoop in and take a hold?
I think it boils down to 2 things. One, you've got elected officials who are not giving the activists what they want. And 2, you've got this now more than just steady drip. It's now a pretty steady stream of people coming over from the Democratic side or would-be Democratic voters who are coming over here because they see the opportunity
Yes.
that a Trump represents or a Carrie Lake represents or Candace Owen or Katrina Pearson here locally, et cetera, et cetera.
I think you're absolutely correct.
So I guess my overall concern with Vivek Ramaswamy is that we don't know very much about him. Everything that we know about him is basically from him. And he's not done anything for the Republican Party ever. As far as we can tell, he has minimal financial contributions, minimal, if any, endorsements, support for candidates, getting people elected. Then he shows up and he throws his hat in the ring at age 38 for the presidency of the United States. We don't know enough objectively about him. He has not had to answer tough questions. The media is not asking him tough questions because he's the to quote Joe Biden about Barack Obama when he was running for president, he's fresh and clean. And when you look at him on the stage, he is fresh and clean. He is young. He is snappy looking, and other than his hairdo the other night. But, when you look at all these old guys who are in their 60s and 70s, gray hairs, wrinkledy faces, they've obviously been around the block. And then you get Vivek go up there, fit and trim and young, and, used to be a ranked tennis player and gets up on stage and raps like Eminem. And he's obviously intelligent. He obviously has intellect to spare. He's obviously well-versed, conversant. He is picking up on politics of politics. And he is doing a much better job in the second debate than he did in the first debate by far. And he's progressing very quickly. He's a quick learner, but we still don't know enough about him. And that's the concern that I've got about Vivek is he has no record. You've said with Donald Trump in 2016, 2015, voted for him. We rolled the dice, blind in the dark. And it was like, what other choice do we have? How much bad can it really do? But we have other options now, is my point. I'm really concerned that there are some people out there who are looking at Vivek and who are saying, well, here's a guy who's got brown skin, and here's a guy who's young. He can appeal to the youth vote, and he can appeal to minorities. And they're not looking at what does he actually stand for? What is he actually about? And when you're talking about someone running for the president of the United States, I'm just not willing to hand over the executive branch to somebody who we don't know more about than what we know about this guy.
I think so far, if we learned anything, is that it seems that record and policy stances really don't matter. They don't seem to be a factor. It seems performance. How do you carry yourself on stage? That seems to be the priority. And that seems to be how people are choosing their candidate. The thing about Vivek that bothers me is, well, two things. Number one, as I said many times, I purposely, willfully ignored many, many red flags around Donald Trump in 2016. Now I've decided I will never do that again. And as you outlined in this episode, there are plenty of red flags about Vivek and how exactly he made his money, what are his motivations. There's even a red flags as far as what are his real political leanings. I would demand that the red flags are addressed to my satisfaction. So I'm not repeating the mistake I made in 2016. I like to learn from my mistakes. The second thing is it is very, very concerning this trend in the GOP where someone like Vivek can just swoop in. It's almost like the party has no guardrails at all, no mechanism to screen people who are getting into the race for reasons of personal promotion or whatever. It seems to me that the party needs to prevent this because we have seen this over and over again. It's concerning. I think a serious party should have some sort of mechanism to keep this from happening. So that's really the two things that I want to say about Vivek.
I think those are valid concerns. I don't have anything else. I think that's a good place to stop. It's been a very good conversation on a very new, unknown character in Republican politics.
Yes, it certainly has been.
Very good. Well, talk to you again next time.
Next time. Thanks.